afternoon. Welcome. Aegis 360 Consulting, one of our 30-minute pop-up webinars. As always, if you missed part of it or you want to go back and watch it, we put it up on our YouTube channel. While you're there, go ahead and subscribe and please share it with others if you think they might be interested. Today, we're talking about creating a culture of compliance. Creating a culture of compliance. And actually, what we really want is a culture of agreement. So what we're really wanting is a culture of agreement, not a culture of compliance. And that's really what we're going to be talking about. So I'm glad that you're here. And let's move on with this and talk about creating a culture of agreement, not a culture of compliance. Here's the question that I like to ask business people. How much time do you spend on strategy? How much time? Normally, the answer is quite a lot. Normally, people spend a lot of time on strategy. They're thinking about finances and they're thinking about markets and they're thinking about customers and products and services and, how do we penetrate that market and how do we sell to that market and how do we run this and how do we do that and how do we do our continuous improvement and our quality control. And they spend a lot of time on that. And guess what? They should. They should spend an enormous amount of time on that. However, I also like to compare it to something, and that is how much time do you spend on your culture? And I think that is a really, really important thing. And I can tell you many, many companies don't spend anywhere near enough time on their culture, either internally or externally. So we're going to talk a little bit about that. And what I really like you to do is really take a step back and think about the amount of time you stand on your strategy and the amount of time you spend on your culture. We've said it 1,000 times. There's an old adage out there. No one really knows who it is attributed to, but it doesn't really matter. And culture eats strategy for lunch. And I would tell you, I happen to fall down on that side of it. I happen to agree that culture does in fact eat strategy for lunch. You can have the best strategy in the world with no culture, and you're going to have a real mess on your hands. And we could certainly go to case studies and show that over and over again. I will tell you that great culture without a strategy is also in deep trouble, but not near as much as a strategy with no culture at all. So for those of you that are skeptical, I'm certainly willing to argue that with you. So let's talk just about some analytics. What are some of the numbers? You go on the internet and look up culture and statistics, you're going to get run over. There's tons and tons of metrics that have been done, some great, some bad. But I found one that I really liked, and I think that it really adds up to the whole thing. Here it is. 92% of employees would consider leaving their current jobs if offered another role with a company that had an excellent corporate reputation. This was from Corporate Responsibility Magazine back in September 2015, if you want to source it. 92%. Let me tell you something interesting. I probably every single workshop that I've run for the last 20 years, I've asked, usually in the conversation, something comes up along the lines, and I've asked, have you left a job that you hated, even in the same industry, or left a company that you hated for less money? And what's fascinating is the number of hands that shoot up in the air, the number of people that are willing to admit in front of their bosses, you know what? I went somewhere else for less money. I went somewhere else for less money because I didn't like it here. And normally they don't like the culture. They don't like the boss. Of course, the boss sets the culture. We could have that conversation all day long. But here's the bottom line. Culture will get you stability within your workforce. It'll also make your recruiting efforts way easier. And hopefully you can reduce this 92% number way down. Clearly, there's not everything you can battle, right? Somebody might leave you because they love working for you, but it's a mile to work to the new job and they drive 40 miles to get to you, and it's a lifestyle change. Well, okay, that's off the books. We're not going to worry about that. I can't change my location to satisfy everybody. However, there's so much I can do on the inside. So this is just one of the literally hundreds and hundreds of statistics that are out there about corporate culture. And I've validated this hundreds and hundreds of times. Would you leave a place you don't like, either the boss them personally or the company itself, or a culture that's allowed to go on for less money? And the answer is always a resounding yes. Many, many people have done it. So there's your one. If you're a statistics person, if you got to have that in order to understand that, there you go. There you have it right there. 92% of your workforce is ready to walk out your door right now for less money and go somewhere else because you're not doing things right on the inside. And let's be clear, this isn't just about free birthday parties and daycare and doggy care and all this other stuff we read about trying to build a good culture. Hey, all those are great. That's a part of it, but it goes way deeper than that. That you can't do that and expect that to answer all the problems because it's not going to work. So let's define it. What is corporate culture, organizational culture? It's the unwritten rules and norms of a group of people. It's what it is. It's the unwritten rules and norms of a group of people. Now, the bottom line is, do we write some of these down? Well, the answer is yes. We do, in fact, write some of them down. There's no question about that. But that's not what I'm really talking about. It doesn't mean that they're completely unwritten. It doesn't mean we don't have written rules and norms, procedures, policies, so on and so forth. Of course we do. But here's how I like to check this. I like to go into a place, and I'll use this as an example. If I go into a shop and I ask somebody in the shop, hey, I see you're wearing safety glasses. Why do you wear them? They'll give me usually one of two answers. And this is a little bit on the extreme, but you can certainly pay attention and listen intently to the individual and find out what side they're on. They'll say something along these lines. If I don't wear them, I get a day off without pay, or I get written up, or I get in trouble with my boss. Okay. The other side is I wear them because why wouldn't I? I want to keep my eyes because it's what we do here. They almost look at you like you're a little bit of a goof, right? It's just something we do. Yeah, it's written down, but they probably can't tell you where because they don't care, because they do it because it's right. This is just what we do, period. That becomes a culture of agreement. So true culture is the unwritten rules and norms of a group of people. It can be good or it can be bad, right? I've long said that if I walked in the shipping and receiving department and talked to that group for a while and then wandered through and talked to manufacturing, and you can take these words and put it in a library, you can put it in a law firm, you can put it in a hospital, it doesn't matter. Talk to the rank and file, the manufacturing group, the service delivery group. Go over and talk to engineering, maybe spend a little time in accounting. I have a really good idea who I'm going to meet when I get to the CEO's office, and I'm probably not far off. When you've been in and out of many organizations as I have, you can smell it, you can feel it, you can touch it. It comes through loud and clear, loud and clear. Now, we talked about a little bit of this already, but I really want to drive this point home because there's a few more things I'd like to spend to it. How much time do you really spend on culture? And you probably don't spend enough. Okay, Ned, so what should I do? What does that time look like? Well, I'm going to give you a few things later, but I will tell you there's one thing that you ought to be doing. You ought to be listening and talking to your employees. I'm a huge proponent. Disclaimer, we sell them. We're glad to do them for you, but get them from us or get them from somebody. I'm a huge proponent of doing employee engagement surveys. Now, they take on many forms and fashions, but I think it's very, very important that we do them, we read them, and we report back to everybody, and then we take action on those things. Okay, that's one thing we can do. I'm a huge proponent of it. I think you ought to do them at minimum of once a year. There's tons of ways to do it. There's pulse, there's annual, there's semi-annual, there's biannual, there's all kinds of different ways to do it. But bottom line is we need to be gathering data from our team and find out what they have to say. A lot of different ways to get that done. All right, one of the other things that we can do is, well, I call them entrance interviews. Now, you've probably heard of an exit interview. Well, I like to spend a little time on entrance interviews. A new employee has been there 90 to 120 days. Right in that window somewhere, somebody should sit down and do an interview of them. What do you see? What do you feel? What do you hear? What do you see? What do you feel? What do you hear? Okay. What was your hiring process like? Was it professional? What could have been better? Did we communicate well enough? Did we explain who we were? How well did we do that, right? What was your onboarding process like? Now, granted, this question at this point is really looking at the front end of bringing somebody on board. But if you listen between the lines, you're going to find out a lot about, especially the see, the feel, the hear questions. You're going to find out a lot about the culture of the organization. Here's one other thing I'd like to say. Watch what new employees do from day 0 to 90, and then watch what they do on day 91. Now, it's a bright line, I get it. But on day 91, you know what they're going to start doing? The unwritten rules and norms. So what's that look like? They're on time, 8 o'clock, 5 minutes early for 90 days. Day 91, they start coming in at 5 after. Why? Because they feel good about it? Well, yes, but why? Because everybody else comes in at 5 after. It's just that simple. That's the culture. We have a start time of 8. Everybody comes here at 8:05. It's just who we are. Now, again, that may be fine with you. And if that's the culture you want and it's good and it's working, I'm not criticizing it. I'm just saying you just need to understand what it is. Oftentimes, we can't even identify the culture within our organization, even the small things like that. I went to a company in Iowa to do some training, and I was told before I went out there, Ned, we'd like you to help us. We're trying to drive a new culture in the organization. I said, what's that? Showing up on time to things. Okay, what do you want me to do? At the 9 o'clock hour, when the training starts, we want you to shut and lock the door. And anybody that's not there has already been told they have to go to their manager and tell them why they were late. That's pretty hard. I got to admit, that's pretty hard. However, I will also tell you, they told me later, they changed the culture of being on time to meetings in record time. Nobody got written up. Nobody got a day off. Nobody got a suspension. Nothing went in the file. But they did have to have a conversation. And what did that do? That brought in an accountability. And people said, I don't want to have that conversation with my boss. So I'm going to get there on time. And they changed the culture in that organization in record time. All right. So how do we then get to the whole culture piece? So I always say we get there by understanding our values. And you're going to see me play this out over and over again. Do you have a value of play and of fun? If you do, if you value that, if you want that to be a part of your organization, then you should do some of that. You should have some fun. You should have a 30 to 45 minute Friday fun day and play bean bags or, have pizza or do something, have a little bit of fun. I never forget, I went to work for a company and he said, we play hard and we work hard. And it wasn't we work hard and we play hard. We play hard and we work hard. And you know what? They meant it and they live it to this day. That company is living it. And they did. They played hard and they worked hard. And that company is extremely successful in every marker you can imagine. Do you have a culture of helping others, carrying others when they need carried, helping somebody do something? Are you a culture that embodies that? If somebody's struggling, do you reach out to them? Or do you set them on fire? Do you kick them to the curb, right? Do you leave them stranded? What's your culture? Ask. People will be glad to tell you. Do you have a culture of safety? And do you display it? And do you talk about it? And does that mean something? And do you live it? If the rule is that no one's on the shop floor without safety glasses, then guess what? And you're the president or the manager or the CFO or the HR person, I had better not see you on that shop floor without safety glasses. Because what are you doing? You're laughing at the policy, and what are you saying about the culture? Well, our culture is that we kind of apply it to some people, but not everybody. So we're really not serious about safety. We only talk about it. Well, then be honest about it and say, we only talk about safety here. We really don't do it. Put it on your website. Tell the Ohio Bureau of Workmen's Compensation or whatever bureau state you're in. Tell your insurance company. Yeah, see how that works for you. You better be living it every day, all day, and not messing around. Here's another big one. Do you have a culture of vulnerability trust? Are you willing to lay yourself out there? Are you willing to say, I need help with this? I'm not good with that. I'm sorry I missed that deadline. Is that something that you value? If you do, you better live it. It's really, really important. Do you have a culture of excellence? And look, I'm not saying perfection. They say the biggest enemy of perfection or the biggest enemy of excellence is perfection. So I'm actually one that says, you know what? In some areas, perfection is required, but not all of them. Getting getting the spaceship back from, we got to have perfection, right? We got to have perfection in brain surgery. But elsewhere, most elsewheres that we work, excellence works, and we've got to go for excellence and don't let perfection get in the way. And when we get really close, we need to applaud that, right? Always strive for better, but applaud when good is there and when it matters. And then last but not least, and of course you could have others as well. I'm just bringing up, 6 different values here. You could have others. Do you have a culture of imagination? Do you have a culture of creativity? Do you have a culture of innovation? Everybody shakes their head up and down. Absolutely, we do. And you know where I like to test that? I like to test that with a question of, have you had a time in your company where you tried something new and it didn't work out? How did management and how did your coworkers respond to that? That's what I want to know. Because let me tell you something. When it comes to innovation, creativity, taking initiative, trying things out, you know what comes hand in hand with that? Failure. And if you're not willing to embrace some of the failure along the way, if you're not willing to be agile, if you're not willing to fail fast, if you're not willing to say, hey, I'm really glad you tried that, didn't work out so well, let's figure out what went wrong so you can learn and move forward. We can all learn from it. If you don't have that, if that doesn't work for you, then guess what? You're not living that culture. So you can say it all you want, but the minute somebody tries something new and you don't applaud the effort, then you've just killed the culture. Don't say it, because then people say, yeah, they say a lot of things around here, but they don't do it. So these are just 6 different values. There's hundreds of other values that you could take. I use these as examples. If you want these 6, fine, run with them. That's fine with me. All I'm saying is understand what values you hold near and dear and then live them. And sometimes living them is really hard. So let's now go to somewhere else. You want to find out what your culture is. There's one question you ask, and it has to do with 3 things. One question you ask, and it has to do with 3 things. And here it is. Look at your customers and say, if I ask your customers, describe your company in 3 words, what 3 words would we hear over and over? So if I went to your customers, said, Ned, here's 100 of our customers. And by the way, when we do engagement surveys, when we do customer service or any of our surveys, this is one of our key questions that we ask. I go and I always ask, when you think of XYZ company, what 3 words come to mind? And then what do? We look for the 3 words we hear over and over and over again. So I'll give you a live example. We actually did this at Aegis. We went out to our customers and we asked them this very question. When you think of Aegis 360 Consulting, what 3 words come to mind, or describe this company in 3 words? Any way you want to ask it is fine. And we only give them 3 words, not 3 sentences, not 3 phrases, 3 words. I want just the words. You got to be very, very specific about that. So this is the answers we got back over and over and over again. We got challenging, insightful, humorous, honesty, external, resourceful, rational. There's a few people that would probably disagree with that one. Experienced, reality, nonsense. I think it was no nonsense. It actually is no nonsense. I always like to throw that out there. It's fun. Caring, and so on and so forth. So these were the words that we heard over and over and over again from our customers. Are some of these values? I think they are. We value fun and laughing. I think it's an important value to have. I think trust is a value, honesty. So some of these are values. Some of them might be skills. You might argue that they're a skill. That's fine. But I can certainly turn a value into a skill or vice versa. But I think this is really, really important. So let's do a little thought experiment here. We're going to put 2 companies that everybody on this call and everybody listening to this recording will know. And I want you to think about this before you answer the question. I don't care if you're not particularly fond of the brand. These are really huge companies. You might not be fond of the brand. You might have somebody that you would prefer to do business with. I'm fine with that. And by the way, really large companies that have been around a really long time, all of them stub their toe. None of them get it right all the time. I don't care how good they are, right? Doesn't matter. I like to say, if you want to go into a really deep conversation about it, What do they do when they stub their toe? How do they recover is a true mark of their culture and of what they care about. But these are two companies I happen to admire. So when you think of these two companies, what values or what three words come to mind? So the first one is Starbucks, right? Now again, you might not be a coffee drinker. You say I don't like to do business with really big companies. I'm a buy local person. That's all fine. That's not what we're here to discuss. I want to know, when you think about these companies, what little you might know about them, what kinds of things come to your mind. And here's what I hear over and over and over again: clean. I would agree with that. They are pretty obsessive about their stores being clean. Um, their employees work hard. They work really hard. I got somebody that just chatted in here, and they're saying that inclusive, community oriented, and friendly. Yes, I would completely agree with that. And there's been some times in their company that they've stubbed their toes, or their employees have, and they've been pretty public about it. What I like about them is they fix it. So I say, they look themselves in the mirror and they fix what isn't working just the way it ought to work. And they're willing to do that. They're kind of pretty vulnerable. They kind of lay themselves out there. So yeah, there's a lot of great things you can say about this company, and their values hold true. You don't have to like them necessarily to understand that. Just use it as a thought experiment. Here's our second one: Southwest Airlines. So when you think of Southwest Airlines, either answer the question, what three words come to mind, and or what values do you think that they hold? And I would tell you, clean is one, on time, safety oriented, humorous. They have got, there's legendary stories about what this company has done. They have tried to do it right. In no matter what. They haven't always gotten it right, but they've always tried to do it right. And I think that's really important. Now, we could have tons of other examples of really large companies out there. It's interesting. Their culture really came flying through when they had their merger with AirTran. And it was interesting because I was paying very close attention. I'd flown on both airlines, and I went up shortly after the final piece of the merger was done, and everybody was in a Southwest uniform. And I went up and I talked to two of the people at the gate, at the service desk at the gate up at Cleveland Airport. And it was kind of slow that day, and we were chatting a little bit. And it didn't take me long. And I said, both of you came from the start of the Southwest side, not the AirTran side. And they went, yeah, how'd you know? I said, it shows. I could see the culture of AirTran come out in the employees, even when they were wearing a Southwest uniform. It's been enough time now that those people have either left because they didn't fit in, or they've finally bought into the culture over there, and you can't tell the difference. But it really showed. It was really, really interesting. You could see it very, very quickly. So here's a question: what do you want to be known for? Right? What culture do you want to be known for? If you're on the HR side, if you're on the recruiting side, even if you're not, if you're on the management side, you had better be going out on Glassdoor and getting a sense of what people are saying about your company working there. Because everybody else is doing it, you better know. You don't have to agree with it. Some of it could be lies. Doesn't matter. You better know what's being said. And you better try to control what's being said as best you can. And you better get out in front of it. And you better set the narrative so other people repeat the narrative. That's really, really an important piece to this. You better look at yourself as others look at you. What do you want to be known by? What memories do you want to leave behind? You could call it a legacy if you want. But I don't care what anybody says. I built the meanest, baddest, richest company, and we churned through employees, and we hurt a lot of people. Yeah, nobody says that. So if you don't want that to be the thing that you brag about, then you might want to think about doing something a little different. And that doesn't mean that you have to not be profitable. I just showed you two companies that are wildly profitable in very difficult markets, and they've not done any of those things. And by the way, I have three kind of main markers for these companies, and here's what they are. Are they profitable over the long haul? Well, my two examples have been, do they have a very low turnover rate of their employees based against their industry average? Those two have a very low turnover rate based against industry average. And are they safe? In other words, do they, no matter what, do they keep their employees safe and their customers safe? And both of them have extremely good records measured against their industry for that. And if a company's hitting those three markers, they're hitting on all the cylinders they need to. They're taking care of the strategy part of the business, which is the financial. They're taking care of the internal part of the business, which is the employees, because they don't have high turnover. And they're taking care of the community piece. So I take safety just out of slip and falls. Are they good community partners? Are they safe for their, do they care about their customers as well as their employees? Do they care about the community around them? Do they try to help feed the poor? Those sorts of things, right? So that's all falls kind of under that. And I guess I could call it, are they good community partners? But safety and community partnership to me falls under one because I like the internal and external. Those are the three things I look at. If any one of those three things is lacking, then we have a problem somewhere and we better figure out where it is. So I want to draw this to a close, and I want to draw it to a close with a couple of thoughts for you. And here are the thoughts. I've been really kicking this around a while. First of all, turn any panic into opportunity. It could be panic of, it could be a low grade panic. My number one salesperson quit. That's a level of panic, right? I lost the biggest account. I lost a really long-term small account. We had to shut down. The building caught on fire. Whatever the panic is, whatever level it is, whatever time of year or decade it happens, turn it into opportunity. Panic for like 3 seconds and then start thinking, okay, how can I move forward? Protect your brand at all cost. What do you want to be known for? In your panic is when you will hurt your brand, or you will show us what your brand really is. Okay. You will show us what your brand really is. And that'll come flying through in duress. We'll see it instantly for everyone, and it'll get told on the internet and in the newspaper. So protect your brand at all costs. Number 3, enhance and improve your digital footprint. No matter what, that's the world we're going down, and we have to do that. So I would say we always have to do it. It doesn't mean that you have to improve it or enhance it. And this is really, really important. Build only what is sustainable, only what will survive the long haul. Okay. Those are the 4 things in any kind of a situation you happen to be in, because that's where the culture is really going to come flying through. And this, and if you'll notice, this does what? It hits on strategy and it hits on culture as well. Protecting the brand is internal, external, right? I mean, that's really the key to this. And then my last thought for the day is, without a plan, there is no change, only chaos. Without a plan, there's no change, there's only chaos. I've had people tell me, oh, I can't understand why, these companies are planning for reopening and so on and so forth, or they're making these plans. They don't know what's going to happen in the future. Nope, they don't. You're absolutely right. But they can put their best foot forward. They can come up with a good plan, and whatever changes they need to make are changes that actually work or get closer to working instead of chaos. All right. Well, we want to thank you for being here today. And that's our contact information. You can go to the YouTube channel. This will be up in probably a couple of hours today. And glad you're here. If anybody's got any questions, I'm willing to hang around and talk. Otherwise, we appreciate it. And take care. Be safe and be good.